This is Happy Friend-a-versary Day. Did you know that? Yeah, we're celebrating the beautifulness of this church, really. And I really thank you for coming and celebrating that gratefulness that we have for this church, for being here. And it's a beloved home of worship and God and friendship and soulful searching. And so I kind of want to start out today with why I chose to wear these colors. I said it's not just because I want to be bright, but it reminds me of the friends that I have. They're all colors. They're all different people, and they're all lively and bright, and they have depth. That's what the black is for, the depth, you know. So I thought I would kind of go with the theme here. And so friendship means it's a state of enduring affection, esteem, intimacy, and trust between two. And that's what it means, like in the dictionary and on the human level, okay? And I want to talk about my first formed friendships at first. My first very friendships were my siblings. Because I lived in an isolated area on a farm. It was like probably about 45 minutes away from town. And our parents married very young. I think they had 4 kids by the time my mom was like 24. So she was very busy. And we kind of stayed out on the farm most of the time because they couldn't afford things. They couldn't afford the gas to go to town that often. And so my first friendships were my brothers and sisters. And I really, honestly, probably, even though I even went to school and everything, my strongest friendships were with my siblings more than my schoolmates. And I don't really remember forming a good friendship with someone until I was like in my 10th or 11th grade. And I think maybe that was maybe a little bit of inadequacies of knowing how to form any friendship. Because it's easy to form a bond with your brothers and sisters because there's kind of a natural love there, just them being your DNA, right? So anyway, I kind of was in a way shocked, but then in a way I was like, oh, that kind of explains a lot of things about myself, you know. But one of the most common verbs for love in Greek is philo. And the Greek word for friend is philos. And that comes from this verb. In the New Testament, a friend is immediately understood as one who loves. Isn't that great? And this fundamental connection between love and friendship is an essential starting point for reclaiming friendship as a source of faith and ethics, because it teaches us so many things when you get involved with other people, right? It teaches you, you know, how they feel, to stay awakened, to be aware, to respect boundaries, you know. Actually learning how to love somebody isn't really about how you love. It's about how they need to be loved a lot of times. So a true friendship is more like a covenant instead of a contract with somebody. And we hold friendships as a contract a lot of times. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, it was like if somebody didn't do something under my contract, you know, it could be like, you know. So it's really interesting to actually see it as a covenant, you know, a friendship to God, really, a friendship to God. And God and Jesus, they gave us free will, right? And we need to give our friends, you know, our co-workers, free will, you know, as long as it's not probably causing harm. And they're one that sticks closer than a brother or sister. And sometimes after your brother and sister, you outgrow and go away and you form friendships, you become closer to others like a brother or a sister. In my journey of life, I've learned that we have many levels of friendship. I even looked it up, and there's one person that created a friendship thing based on 7 levels of friendships. And then another person did 4. And I came up with 5 or 6, at least in the way that I see friendships. And the first one is acquaintances and peers. And these are people that like work with you or pass in a certain moment, at a party maybe even. But I chose to only notice the friends that I have that are magical ones. And the magical ones, they're brief, but they're powerful. They stand out because they seem to hear your prayers sometimes. They're just people that appear, and you may have had a struggle, or you may have needed something. You may have been praying for something that you couldn't afford, or that you just didn't have time to go get, or something. And they surprise you, either with a compliment, because you needed it, because you were feeling like crap that day, or even you probably didn't even maybe take a shower or something, and you feel terrible. And they just come up and say, hey, you look so good today. And you're like, you know, how can I, you know? But, you know, I've learned, instead of going no and rejecting that love, I say, well, thank you. And I receive it, because I look at it as God's coming through them and coming to me and saying something that I needed to hear or that I needed to feel. And so I have had so many moments where, just recently actually, I had a client that I hardly know them. I cut their hair maybe once every 6 weeks or something. And, you know, people always share something about themselves when they're there and stuff. But this person often thinks of me for some reason, and I don't know how to explain it, nor do I understand it, but I have learned to just go with it and go with the flow of it. But just recently, he comes by and he says, you know, he goes, I have these little tables that I want to give you. And I'm like, okay. You know, and I'm like, I never asked for a table, you know, kind of thing. And he goes in this other little thing. And he says, he goes, are you going to be here at 5? And I said, sure. And so he comes by and he brings me these tables. But just like a week ago, David and I were looking for these little tables for having in our home, which is very small. And so you have to have little pieces of things to work for you. So we were wanting these little tables, and we actually went out to look at tables and see the prices and what they look like, and kind of just getting for accommodations, like fitting in a small space and maybe folding down and putting away. And we just didn't like anything. And so this guy goes, I want to give you these tables. And he comes in, and they are these hand-carved teak tables. Wow. That are nesting tables, like fit into one another. And I'm like, really? You're wanting to give those away? I said, are you sure you don't want any money? And he's like, no. And I'm thinking to myself, he had to be told or guided or something. You know what I mean? And when you start paying attention to that kind of stuff, it's like it happens almost on a daily basis. It really does. And so I choose to kind of focus on those things instead of like any kind of negativity that I have with somebody, or if somebody's mad and says things that are not very nice. I just choose to do this, but it is amazing. And the more that I notice it, the more it happens. The more it happens. Even Eva did this one year. I went to a Christmas party that I wasn't even invited to except at the last second. And everybody was given these gifts. And I don't even think she knew that I was going to be there until the last minute, right? And so she comes in and we're sitting there. We're at Judith's, actually. And she says, you know, I was out shopping and I was told to get this thing. And she goes, I didn't even know who they were for until this morning when I was coming here. And she gave me the angel cards. And I had been wanting angel cards for like months and was intending to buy myself some angel cards. And she heard that guided thing. And it's amazing. And it wasn't planned because nobody like knew I was coming until the last second. And she had already bought those things because it told her to pick them up before then. And it's just amazing. I'm just like, wow, you know? So these kind of things, if you'll pay attention, they happen. They check in with you. I have had people that I hardly know. They call and ask, how am I doing? You know? So I call those my magical being friends. And I try to pay attention to when I'm called to do that too now, because it's become so prevalent that I try to, if something says, you know, buy that or pick this up or this person could use that, and I go, and I haven't even talked to that person for a while, I do it. I try to do it, and then I make sure that I get it to them, and because I like to be magical. I do. There's times I'm not, though. And so that comes into our second friendship that I've discovered, and they're short-term friends, seasonal friends. And these are real important to get. And that's so you don't get too emotional about it, because they're seasonal people. There's people that come in your life and then they go. And it's just the way it is. And we try to fit these people into long-term categories, and we get really emotionally attached, and then we get really angry when they leave or when something happens good for them, right? You have to wish them well. It's very important to realize, to appreciate while they're present in your life, and then enjoy them and be grateful for them, and then encouraging of them while they're there. But also, the truth is, they're not meant to be there forever. They're just not. And it's okay. And if you accept this, there will be less grieving, you know, because you'll be more celebrating for them. And then that loss and that moving to the next level will be a little bit smoother, a little bit, and you'll actually be a little bit more open for the next flow of the person that comes into your life, or the next level that you're going to journey to. In 1 Thessalonians 5:11, it says, "Therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing." Because you have to do this, because you have to do this for yourself. These short-time friends bring some special value at the moment, whether it be a few months, a few years. This is very important, and this is when you have to gracefully let go. You get a chance to gracefully let go. Be very grateful, focus on the blessings, and bestow what you have shared with this person to the next. And that brings us to the commonality friendship. These friendships are created by means of belief system, trauma, support groups, church groups. These become connected by what seems to be invisible threads. You know, there is like a Chinese saying about sometimes you have a red thread between each other that never gets severed. They may look from the outside a short-term person, but in actuality, they're infinitely connected. These friendships can go for years without physical contact, but when you're together again, it's like you never, ever have been apart. You just, it's like a piece of a puzzle and you fit together and you just go off from the last time you saw each other, you know? And those are very beautiful friendships. I have a lot of those, across country, across actually this country and other countries. And then you have best friends. I kind of like to squeeze in the animals are in here between some of this stuff, you know, because they do really bring a comfort to you. They make you feel like you're not alone. They give you hugs all the time. I mean, they're very loyal to you. But anyway, best friends are lifetimes. Like, it can be many lifetimes if you believe in that. But these friendships are raw, and they're built on truth. And truth isn't always pretty. The beauty of these relationships are that they see the yin and the yang of you, and you see the yin and the yang of them. A lot of times it can be, you know, your husband or wife or partner. And yes, the dirt, it's messy, but they love you more. When they see that, they love you more. Oh my God. You don't really know why. They help you dig ditches. They help you build steps. And they have your best interest at heart. And of course, we hope that we have their best interests at heart, that they don't do it at the expense of themselves. You know, we have to check on each other on that one. We only get a few of these in our lifetime. And so it's real important to take care of them. It's real important to recognize how much they put up with. And to be more forgiving and have more grace. And hopefully they build that strength where you can go out into the community and do more God's work of loving, because this person brings you strength. But here's some verses that I looked up about friendship in the Bible. In Proverbs 27:9, it says, "Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from the earnest of counsel." And then Romans 12:10, it says, "Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor." And then in Colossians 3:13, it says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you." And then in 1 Peter 4:8-10, it says, "Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of error. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each of you has received a gift, each of you has received a gift. Use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Now, before I go to the fifth one, I want to know, like, from volunteers, I guess, I'll ask you to volunteer. I won't go you and you. But I'd like for somebody to maybe share something that they came away with at the church, like what the church has brought to you, or what you've been able to give, or maybe how it's changed your journey. Would anybody like to share that?
Well, fellowship is like a friendship to me. It's commonality, it's a sharing of love. That's about it.
Yeah, that was short.
I can't say any more. It's like togetherness, It's like love. Friendship feels.
Anybody else? Yeah.
This church helped me through the grief process of losing what I thought was going to be a life partner. He was the one who first brought me to Unity, and that was in Seattle. And from there, we went to church in Fort Townsend, and then after he passed, I came here to Port Angeles, and the church and the feelings around the church and the people in the church have allowed me to grieve and not be smothered. And I have, part of him is always going to be there, but my life has changed, everything is okay, I have a new husband, and life is good, but I owe that all to higher power and this church presenting higher power. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We really want to hear you.
When I came to this church many years ago, I felt welcome, and it was a wonderful warmth, like a big soul hug. And I've kept coming back because of that. It's also been wonderful expanding my knowledge and my learning, and I really appreciate that. And I have some very special people and friends that hopefully will always be with me.
That's it.
Anybody else? I think Eva was like,
These boots were not made for walking.
Well, being part of this community has helped me bring out the magic in my life and be the heartfelt person that I have always felt inside, but now this community accepts me that way. And I love the love that we share, all of us. That's the basis of this whole church. God is love, and each one of us is that face of God. Thank you.
anybody else?
would go past 11:45, 11:50.
All right. Okay, so I just have one more important relationship, and that's with Jesus and yourself. Because yourself is Jesus. You have Jesus in you. You have that light, that love, that connection. The kind of relationship that Jesus gave us, and this is a really strong one. In John 15:12-13, it says, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay one's life for one's friend." Jesus is our way shower. He's our guide. He gave us everything. He gave us knowledge of God. He ultimately surrendered his own life for us. And I don't know if you know that he actually went before people could betray him or people turned their back on him. He went and took and volunteered instead of waiting for them to come get him. And he knew when somebody was going to deny him. He knew when somebody was going to betray him, but he never ever wavered to treat them any different. He loved them. He respected them. And he treated them the same as the other people sitting at his table or following him and helping him. He already knew, and he never changed how he was. That's very powerful. I don't know on a human level if we can do that. But I think we can. And I try every day. I try to remind myself every day. But he did not claim to be our master, nor did he claim us to be his servants. Actually, in his dying, he exalted us to partners, companions, friends. He knew before everything, but he still continually showed love and respect. And his love had no limits. None. Wow. None. I think that's why it's so I know there's moments when I feel that love, that powerful. It's just so powerful. It's overwhelming. And you just start breaking down and crying for no reason. Knowing him and about him, developing a relationship with his teachings, and allowing the guidance of the Holy Spirit to flow in your life makes it possible for us to live life of friendship. And we have been transformed by this love that he has for us. We have been transformed by everything that he shared with us. And Jesus was plain and he was honest in his speaking. And he gave full revelation of God's love for us. And that made our human life more holy, more sacred. And it's up to us to treat it like that. And Jesus' friendship becomes, or has been, the source for our capacity to love and have friendship. And through friendship, we come to know God, ourselves, and others. It's like a energy flow that has to just keep going. Through friendship, we enact the love of God. Through our relationship with God or Jesus, it's strengthened and makes our relations with others stronger. Without friendship, our relation with God and Jesus does not develop fully, because we have to know the answers that our friendships cause. In Matthew 18:20, it says, "For where two or more are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them." Do you recognize a person being a friend? Will you know it different now? Do you consider yourself being a friend? And will you recognize you as that friend? Psalms 133:1 says, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell in unity." And I love all of you, and I can't tell you how much the love of your energy, the love of your support, is just the most incredible thing I've ever felt. And don't stop. Don't stop. Thank you.